The idea came to me while I was watching a video about home security. Some ex-burglar was explaining the easiest ways people get into apartments, and one of the first things he mentioned was spare keys. People think they're being clever, he said, shaking his head, but burglars know exactly where to look under the mat, inside a fake rock on top of the door frame. It's the first thing we check. I glanced at my own doormat and felt a weird itch of curiosity. How many people had lifted it hoping to find a key? That's when I got the idea. I found an old key that didn't open anything, a useless spare from a lock I didn't even own anymore, and placed it under my mat just to see if anyone would take the bait. For over a week, nothing happened. Then today, I got home, lifted the mat out of habit, and felt my stomach drop. The key was gone. I didn't tell anyone about it. No one was supposed to know, but someone had checked and someone had taken it. I stood there for a long time staring at the empty spot under the mat, my mind racing. The first possibility that crossed my mind was maintenance. They had spare keys anyway, but maybe they thought I was being careless and took it, or maybe it was a neighbor. Someone saw it and thought it was funny. But if that was the case, wouldn't they have mentioned it? Wouldn't they have put it back? A sick feeling curled in my gut as a third possibility formed. What if someone thought it was real? What if they took it thinking they could use it later? I turned around, scanning the hallway. It was empty, normal, but suddenly it didn't feel that way. I pulled out my actual key, unlocked my door, and stepped inside, quickly shutting and locking it behind me. I walked through my apartment, checking every window, every closet. Nothing was out of place. There were no indications that anybody had entered. But that didn't mean they hadn't planned to. When my phone buzzed, I thought it would be a business email or a group chat. But when I looked at the screen, my breath froze in my throat. I sat down on the sofa and tried to regulate my breathing. This had to be a coincidence. My palms felt clammy as I glanced at the message. Nice trick. A lump appeared in my stomach. Unknown number. Did you think I wouldn't notice? I felt dizzy. My fingers lingered over the screen. My heart was thumping in my ears. I had laid a trap and someone had taken the bait. I gulped hard, my mind racing, and I didn't recognize the number. It wasn't stored in my contacts. What a wonderful trick. Did you think I wouldn't notice? Just those words, hanging in my inbox like a threat, without a name or profile picture. I tried to come up with a reasonable explanation. Perhaps it was a practical joke, or perhaps a friend had discovered the key and was playing a practical joke on me. But how would they know I hadn't told anyone? Besides, this didn't feel like a joke, so I made myself respond. Who is this? The typing bubble appeared instantly, then vanished, and I waited, my heart racing every second that seemed to go by forever, before receiving another message. I got up from the couch and went straight to my door to check the peephole. The hallway was empty, so I threw the deadbolt, secured the chain, and then went to check my windows locked. The logical part of me kept saying, this is just some __ messing with you. But the deeper part of me was drowning under the weight of something worse, because if they had found the fake key, it meant they had lifted my mat, which meant they had stood at my door. I tried shaking it off, but curiosity can be dangerous. I called the cops as my fingers were hovering over the keyboard. I nearly did, but what if someone stole a key that didn't open anything? Someone sent me a spooky text, telling me to block the number and move on. Perhaps I should have, but instead I did something dumb and texted back, "What do you want?" I regretted sending it, and the response came almost instantly, "Unknown number." I wanted to see what you did next, so I got up so quickly that my chair scraped the floor, and I wasn't going to sit here waiting. Before I could call, my phone vibrated once again, so I looked through it and discovered my buddy Matt's contact information. A picture of my stomach. My front door was twisted as I tapped to open it. It was taken from just down the hallway from a low angle, as if someone had squatted down to take it. I felt like I was going to throw up, so I ran back to the peephole, which was still empty. But I knew better now. They had been watching and waiting, and they wanted me to know it. I backed away from the door, my pulse pounding in my ears. Whoever it was, they had been at my door, taken the fake key, had my number, and were now watching me. I forced myself to take a slow, shaky breath. I scrolled to Matt's contact again, my hands shaking, and just as I pressed the call button, another text came in, an unknown number asking for help. I almost dropped my phone, but this wasn't possible. I turned toward the nearest window and pulled the blinds open. The street below appeared normal, with a few cars parked along the curb, and no one standing around, but they weren't there. Before Matt answered, the phone rang twice. "Hey man, what's up?" I swallowed hard. "Someone is playing tricks on me," he said. I spilled out the fake key, the texts, and the picture from my hallway. He was silent for a while. "Are you at home? Are your doors locked?" I checked the peephole again, but nothing. "What should I do?" "You need to leave," Matt said. "Come to my place right now." He was correct, but the thought of opening my door made my stomach turn. I couldn't get rid of the feeling that I wouldn't be alone the moment I stepped outside, so I made myself get up and got my phone, keys, jacket, and anything else I might need. I stood at the door and listened to the silence. I took a deep breath, slid the chain off, and unlocked the deadbolt. The second I turned the knob, my phone buzzed again. I glanced down at the screen. Unknown number. "See you soon." Every hair on my body stood on end. No, I wasn't doing this. I wasn't going outside. Instead, I relocked the door, backed away, and called the police. This time I wasn't second-guessing. The cops arrived within 15 minutes. I stayed on the phone with the dispatcher the entire time, keeping my voice low, my ears tuned to every sound outside my door. When I finally heard the knock, a real knock followed. By police, I nearly collapsed from relief. I opened the door to two uniformed officers, both of them scanning the hallway. "Are you the one who called?" one of them asked. I nodded, gripping my phone so tightly my fingers ached. "Yes, someone's been watching me, sending me messages. They were out here, right here." They asked for details. I told them everything. One of the officers took my phone, scrolling through the texts. His expression darkened. "And you have no idea who this could be?" "No clue," I said. "I don't recognize the number, and I never told anyone about the key." The other officer walked down the hallway, checking around. "No cameras in the building." I shook my head. "Just in the lobby." "Nothing up here." The first officer handed me back my phone. "You should file a report, and you need to be careful." I exhaled slowly. "So that's it. There's nothing you can do." "We'll run the number, but if it's a burner, it won't lead anywhere." He admitted. "Do you have somewhere else you can stay for the night?" I nodded. "Yeah, my friend's place." "Good," he said. "Pack a bag and go now, and if you get any more messages, call us immediately." I did exactly what they said. I packed the bag and left. My breathing wasn't correct until I got inside my vehicle and locked the doors. As soon as I drove away from the curb, I looked in my rearview mirror and saw a dark figure standing at the far end of the street. I wanted to think it was a coincidence, but I knew better. Hood pulled up, standing too still, observing my vehicle, leaving my hands locked around the wheel, my heart slamming in my chest. After staying at Matt's for a few nights, I stopped receiving messages, changed my number, and did everything I could to blend in with whoever was watching me. For a while, it worked, but last week, I stopped by my old building to pick up some mail that had been sent to my old address, and as I was leaving, I noticed something Someone new had moved into my old place, and they had a brand new, clean mat in front of their door, and right underneath the corner of it was a key. I stared at it for a long time, my chest tight. Was it real, or was it just a test? Sometimes when I go along silent halls, I still feel the weight of invisible eyes watching, waiting, and knowing more than they should. I have no idea who put the bogus key under my mat that day, who stole it, or even whether they ever left. I never gave dating apps much attention since they usually seemed like a waste of embarrassing time. Dead-end small talk or worse, being ghosted after a few messages. But I was bored and my friends insisted that I put myself out there, so I thought I'd make a profile, add a few good photos, and fill in the basic information about my profession, hobbies, and favorite foods. A few days in, I matched with a man called Evan who appeared typical and secure. His images were basic, including one at the gym and another with a dog, and his profile was straightforward: coffee addict dog, coffee guy. Let's avoid the small conversation, Dad. Evan's initial communication to me did throw up alarms, but nothing else did. I was wondering when we would eventually match, so I frowned at the computer and wrote back, "Oh, we've crossed paths before." It took him a few minutes to answer, "Evan, not exactly, but I see you a lot. You're kind of a creature of habit," which made my stomach knot. I took a while before responding. "Evan, what do you mean? You consistently go to the gym on 8th Street Monday through Friday after work, and you always have a vanilla latte at the same cafe before work." I became cold. I reviewed the messages again before adding that information on my profile. Something about the way he said it, the assurance in his words as if he knew for sure, made my skin crawl. My fingers lingering over the keyboard must have been a joke, right? Perhaps he simply assumed. Perhaps he was a regular at the same locations and recognized me. "That's rather particular, Evan," and I had myself respond. "Do we know each other? Although it's not official, I feel like I know you." That statement is weighing heavily on my chest in my email, with no explanation or follow-up. I took a deep breath and locked my phone. Perhaps I was overreacting, or perhaps it was nothing, but as I sat in my apartment looking at my screen in the dim light, I noticed something else. My last name was missing from my dating app profile. How could he have found me online even if he had recognized me from the gym or cafe? I told myself that I didn't feel like going for my normal coffee run the next morning and that I would instead get something at work. But in reality, I didn't want to face the danger of bumping into him by lunch since my curiosity had gotten the better of me. After I didn't reply, I reopened the app, half expecting him to have unpaired me, but instead he had a fresh message ready. I was hesitant to open it, but when I did, my heart fell. I read it again. I hadn't gone to the cafe that morning, and I hadn't informed anybody that I was altering my pattern, but he was aware of it and was keeping track. My hands were clammy as I typed out a response that said, "Are you following me?" I regretted sending it because as soon as I hit send, the typing bubble appeared and then vanished. I clenched my jaw and waited until the message finally appeared. "Evan, you're being dramatic. It's just observation." My heart was racing because I felt like I was a project that he was studying, and I had to stop this. I blocked him, closed the app, and tried to get rid of the feeling that I had just made a mistake because blocking him should have been the end of it. That's how it's supposed to work, right? You block someone, and they disappear from your life. No messages or contact. But Evan didn't disappear that night. Even though I had blocked Evan on the dating app, I had a new message request from an unknown number. I hesitated before opening it, thinking that blocking me wouldn't change anything. My stomach dropped, and I stared at the screen with my pulse thudding in my ears. I had barely slept, and every sound in my apartment made me jump, including the hum of the refrigerator, the distant honking from the street below, and the occasional creak from the hallway outside. I told myself that I was being paranoid, that I was allowing a stranger from a dating app to enter my head. How did Evan get my number when I never gave it to him? I turned off my phone because this was so strange and dangerous. I needed to talk to someone, maybe the police. But what would I say that a guy from a dating app knew my schedule and texted me after I blocked him? It wasn't illegal, creepy, and definitely stalkerish, but not enough for them to take seriously. If I had learned anything from watching too many true crime stories, it was that you have to have proof before anyone listens. That day, I decided to try something new. Instead of going to work at my usual time, I left an hour later, taking a different street, and instead of getting coffee at the Grind, I went to a place across town. I kept looking over my shoulder the entire time, but for the first time in days, there was no sign of him. Maybe he had been bluffing, maybe he wasn't really watching me. I let my phone fall. He was aware that he had been observing me, therefore my hands grew cold. After a minute, Evan was the only person who paid attention, so I clenched my jaw and chest tightly in fear that he would leave me alone or call the police. I forced myself to breathe while gripping the edge of my kitchen counter, and my stomach twisted as I stared at my phone, my mind racing. I needed to end this. I thought he would stand back and see how serious I was, but instead he sent me a message that chilled me to the bone. I stumbled back, my heart racing, and rushed to the window, pulling the blinds open as I saw a picture of my apartment building taken from the street directly below my window. The street was almost deserted, with no sign of him, but the message was clear. He was here, watching, waiting, and he wasn't going anywhere. I slammed the blinds shut, my heart hammering in my ears. This wasn't just creepy anymore. It wasn't just unsettling messages or a guy knowing too much about my schedule. Evan was outside my apartment. I made myself think that I needed to do something, and calling the police was the obvious option. However, what would I say if I had matched with someone online and he was now threatening me vaguely, saying that he knew my routine and had somehow found my number? They would probably tell me that it wasn't enough to take any action, but the photo showed that it was proof. Reaching for my phone, I phoned 911. I tried to regulate my breathing by pressing the phone to my ear with wet palms. 911, what emergency do you have? My voice trembled as I added, I have a stalker. He matched me with someone on a dating app and is now messaging me from outside my apartment, threatening me directly. I didn't exactly hesitate, but he emailed me a picture of himself observing me from just outside my building. I told the dispatcher your address, and she assured me that an officer was on his way. Stay inside and keep your doors locked, she added, and then hung up. I gripped my phone tightly. With my stomach in knots, I had shut my door. As I tiptoed near the front door, double-checking the lock and the peephole, I felt a rush of frigid panic. The hallway was empty, so I took a step back to settle my breathing and tell myself that the cops would arrive soon. I had to wait, but suddenly my phone buzzed with another message. I didn't want to look or find out, but did you truly believe the police could assist you? A new surge of fear swept over me. My whole body went cold as I stared at the screen, wondering how he knew the dispatcher had just sent a unit. He couldn't have possibly received another text because they always take too long. I thought I was going to get sick, so I grabbed the kitchen knife because that was the only thing I could think to do. I backed into the living room, keeping my eyes on the door every second. Then there was a knock, and I almost dropped the knife. There were 3 gentle, purposeful knocks on my front door, and I held my breath until I heard a voice that was familiar, but it wasn't from my phone or messages from somewhere else. I moved my heart closer to my neck. "Evan," I said. Silence, then a chuckle. "See, I told you I'd pay attention." I staggered backward, clutching the knife as tightly as I could with my knuckles. How long had he been this close? How long had he been inside my building without my knowledge? I could hear his slow, patient breathing through the door. He wasn't in a hurry because he knew he had me trapped. Then, a distant wail of police sirens broke the stillness, and I turned toward the window, hope fluttering in my chest. When the police arrived, I told them everything, the messages, the photos, and the way he knew my schedule down to the smallest details, and they took it seriously for once. However, Evan was gone. There was no sign of him in the building, no security footage of him entering. It was as if he had never been there at all. I knew better, so I changed everything. After that, I moved apartments, changed jobs, got a new number, deleted all of my social media accounts, stopped using dating apps, and for weeks, I hardly slept in anticipation of another text or message. Another picture demonstrating that Evan had located me again, but it never materialized, and I still don't feel secure because Evan was meticulous, had everything planned, and spoke to me through the door that evening as though he had done this before, was still watching, and would do it again.